Of course it is. I think it's time we talk.
Marion Davies is an iconic figure for classic Hollywood era, and recreating such an important figure is always risky. How do you keep the balance between your version of Marion and real-life screen legend Marion Davies? And I'd like to ask that you're doing an amazing job.
Thanks. I think with every character, I try to find the way I relate to them first. This script was it had all the information that I could ever need to play her. But it's challenging. It's tricky to play someone who really existed because you want to do them justice. You want to honor them in some way for the most part. And I think it was easy to show this other side of her because of what was in the script. And also, like, I had some information in this book, her autobiography, which is just it's written from audio interviews that she had done when she was older. And it's as tricky as it is. If you find the human in that person, then you're able to kind of join essences in a sense, and it starts to become easier.
As we know, Marion Davies is not only an actress. With her relationship with William Randolph Hearst, she was like a link between business and Hollywood. And in Mank, it's all about this connection, actually. And I'd like to hear your opinions about Marion's position in the story.
Marion, she's a lot smarter than people gave her credit for. I think. I mean, she was very intelligent, and she had a way of just kind of negotiating her way through this political world with Hearst, who just had his hands in everything, it seems, and a lot of power. And she also was an actress, and she knew all these actors. I mean, it's like they all hung out at one party. And you read her book, and she's constantly describing, hanging out, inviting Bette Davis around, and Clark Gable and Charlie Chaplin, and they were all buddies. Everybody was buddies. And it's just, I don't know. I think she pretended she knew less about all of it in order to stay out of the drama and also be trustworthy, and people trusted her. And I think that's sometimes it's hard to do that. It's hard to skate through all that unscathed, having no firm opinion in anything, but I think it's safer too.
And in that context, how do you describe her and Marion's relationship?
I think it's very very misunderstood in that I think they really loved each other. It's very clear to me in the research I did, and I think it matches really well with what David Fincher's father wrote, Jack Fincher. There was a loyalty there that is very rare. I think when you picture an older man, a rich older man, and a younger woman, sometimes you prejudge that and you assume, there's somebody's there for the wrong reasons. And I don't think that was the case with Marion and Hearst. They had a really loving relationship. And you see that in this movie. I really hope it's clear.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Lily. You play a young woman, Rita Alexander, secretary of the Herman Mankiewicz, who took all the dictation from him while the writing process of Citizen Kane. How would you describe Rita's role in this whole writing process of a huge masterpiece as a young woman who works in a film business?
Well, Rita is definitely a sounding board and a confidant to Mankiewicz. She not only articulates, or writes down what it is that he's telling her in the story making process of Citizen Kane, but she also provides him with a confidant that he needs because he's going through addiction and insecurities, and there's an immense darkness about Mankiewicz at this time that he needs to get through in order to deliver. And I think the two of them have this relationship filled with respect and admiration and love, and not romantic, just platonic. And I think it's really important for both of them at this time because they both need support. Rita's far away from home. She thinks her husband's dead from the war, and Mankiewicz thinks he's just kind of dried up and not useful. And so she can provide him with the support that he then gives to her. And I love that relationship. I think there's a moral compass, I think, that surrounds their relationship that I think can kind of dominoes into the rest of the film.
And you're also the star of a popular Netflix show, Emily in Paris. and now you play in a pure cinematic experience directed by David Fincher, and it will also be streamed on Netflix too. And as an actress, what do you think about diversity of the movies and series that Netflix stream?
Oh, I'm so grateful to be a part of the Netflix family. Especially, even more so right now where we're not able to leave our homes to go watch these pieces of art like Mank. We get to watch it at home and enjoy it and watch it again, or binge a show like Emily. And the idea that they have everything from comedy to drama, foreign movies and TV shows, like we've been watching a bunch of foreign stuff because you go down this rabbit hole of recommendations and then you discover things you never would have, or documentaries. I mean, the outreach that Netflix has and the amount of projects and types of projects is so vast that I feel like I actually go through film school every day when I start watching things on Netflix, because I'm exposed to so much more than I normally would have been.
While preparing for Mank, did you watch any classic Hollywood films?
I didn't watch anything specifically for this for Rita, but I'm such a huge Audrey Hepburn fan, so I constantly watch like Funny Face, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Roman Holiday, any of those. I also love North by Northwest and a lot of the Alfred Hitchcock films. But again, Rita wasn't a Hollywood starlet, so it wasn't for research for that. But I guess to get into the mindset of black and white and what that means, it's just, I love it so much.
And thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
First of all, I'd like to say that I'm a huge fan of Joseph L. Mankiewicz. And as we know, he's a legend from the classical Hollywood era. During the Manx time period, he was only a scriptwriter and mostly uncredited.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of stuff you focused on while preparing for play a legend before he was a legend?
Yeah. So actually, luckily, right before we started filming, a few weeks before we started filming, a great biography came out about Joe and Herman and their relationship to each other. And that was really, really, really useful for me in terms of a backstory, because they got to tell you about the very young Joe as a little boy and the young Herman and how they interacted. And you got the sense truly of how much Joe really looked up to Herman and loved him and really saw him as like the really cool, awesome older brother that he eventually follows out to Hollywood. And that's kind of where our story picks up. But I mean, for me, that was so alive in the script. It was cool to see that even in the biography, that's reinforced that no, this guy loves his older brother. He's infatuated with Herman, and that was fun to get to play.
As we see, Mank is a harsh movie actually, with all the politics and the hardness of the creative process. But when your character appears on the screen, it all slows down and we can see the human side of Herman Mankiewicz actually. And I would like to ask that, what do you think about the relationship between these brothers? And what do you think about the scriptwriter Mankiewicz and the older brother Mankiewicz?
One of the things that's really enjoyable about the relationship between Joe and Herman is how smart they both are. That they're both so intelligent, and they love language. They love words, and they're both, especially Herman, so witty and such a wise ass, and can be so acerbic and cutting and smart. And that to understand, like, how do these brothers relate to each other? Like, if we're verbally sparring or if we're getting in each other's business in that way, that can be kind of an act of love. Like, this is how these two get to relate to each other, which shows up so much in their writing and their style. But yeah, so it was really fun to kind of play with language off, Gary Oldman that way, to really, you kind of get in the ring with a real heavyweight and throw jabs back and forth.
I'd like to ask that, how was it to play little brother of Gary Oldman? He's a legend, actually a living legend, and you were his younger brother. And
yeah,
how was it?
It was heaven. When I was 18 years old, I had a still frame from State of Grace up on my wall with Gary Oldman and Sean Penn in it. you know, Gary's always been somebody that I've really admired. I feel like I've seen every single one of his films, some of them multiple times. And so, yeah, to get to work with Gary Oldman was really a dream come true. You know, that's pretty much as good as it gets, working with Gary, and the person giving you notes is David Fincher.
All the acting in the film is like from the classic era, actually, and it was like a part of the whole recreation of the Golden Hollywood. How do you compare this classic and modern acting methods as a young actor?
Yeah, I mean, well, what's really fascinating, right, is that like around that time, you're just getting the beginning of, you're still in the very early stages of actors saying dialogue,
Yeah,
you know, on film. It's a new thing. It's literally a new thing. And so, you know, it's kind of fascinating seeing the style, and also because of the lack of huge camera movements or anything like that, that we're focusing on dialogue so much more. And therefore we're trying to get it quicker and faster and sharper and cleaner, because we want the jokes and we want the pace and we're not cutting a million times and we're not swinging cameras all over the place. And so the actors kind of have to be sharp and quick and witty and on top of it, and almost thinking faster than you would think you're allowed to think, versus now we just don't do that style anymore, you know, which was kind of fun to get to do it for the movie. Thank you very much.
Favorite dinner partner. Are you familiar with the parable of the organ grinder's monkey?